Morning.
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 Morning. Now, if Roy rings me, I'm going to have to go.
Roy
from the post room.
At the Royal Marsden.
I've got a classic Christmas missing parcel situation at the moment.
You scrub up well, don't you? You look great. Look at you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, what did I look like before?
Like an absolute harridan.
So you see, I've spoken to you, I've given you a hug, I've asked you how you are, but you've not actually looked at me now until you've looked at me.
Well, I've looked at you at the point that it was worth looking at you. And you look gorgeous. I've not many people just say that sort of shit.
Well, I think you could find a nicer way to say it. I'm not feeling particularly grateful. Say it again. Start all of that again.
You look really nice today. You look gorgeous.
But can we do it without the surprise? Do it nicely.
God, you look nice today, like you do every other day of the week.
Nah, it's insincere. I don't like it. The other day I was saying to Lee, I don't know if Lee's here, Lee paid me some sort of compliment. And I said something. Because he's not a big complimenter, are you, Lee? And I said something back. It was me and another woman. Can you remember this story, Lee? And Lee just looked so confused. He was like, oh my God, I just got a feeling of what it must be like to be a straight man. Because we both came at him. And he was like, he was genuinely, not acting, he was genuinely completely confused.
What, like straight men are? All the time.
Yeah, he goes, oh my God, I'm getting a moment of feeling what it's like to be a straight man.
It's a minefield, Lee. A minefield of constant frustration and insufficiency. You look gorgeous.
That's nice, thank you.
You look really nice.
Thank you, that's lovely.
I wish I had some way of putting a sort of fake...
What did I just say to you on Instagram? I said, you look really hunky. I love your top and your cap, you look great.
Skin that made me look suntanned and fills in the crevices.
Oh, it's hardly fake skin. I look after my skin.
No. But also, you can. I wish men could. Foundation. I wish we had.
Moisturiser
I don't want that. That's ridiculous.
There you go. You know what you could do? Put on a bit of moisturiser, like I tell you every day. You've got great skin. All you have to do is put on a bit of moisturiser, and your skin comes to life. But you wouldn't do that, would you, Mark?
Why are you suddenly getting so formal? I don't know, Nadia.
Anyway, the news. We're going to be talking today about sober curiosity. We're going to be talking about fatphobiaism. We're going to be talking about pantomime memories. And if we have time, we'll talk about taxi ambulances.
The Ice Lake tragedy
is what we're going to start with.
We'd mentioned this yesterday, and this was the tragic story in Sawalha. And of course, more detail about, it's debated as to whether there were 6 children that fell under the ice, 2 of whom still haven't been found, or whether there were 6 or not. But I believe 3 of the 4 that were taken to hospital have died. And there's no update at the moment on the 4th. There hasn't been any news. They were all critical. They all had cardiac arrest. But the story has come out about one of the boys sort of jumping in, or all the boys jumping in to try and save their friend. One of their friends got stuck. His legs got stuck. And then the other children tried to save him. So there will have been this...
It's just that their
frantic...
instinct would have kicked in, their innocence, their... A bit of movie would have kept in.
Yeah,
we can get in, we can get them. It literally... Or just plain sheer terror. Whatever it is, whatever it was, of course we will never know. But we can't stop thinking about the parents come in, just thinking how they'll be running this over and over in their heads. So
MeToo makes a really important comment though. It's bizarre how they can't be certain how many there are. I mean, there must be parents missing children if there's more than... Do you know what I mean? If there's more than 4 and they don't know if there's 6.
Yeah.
So 3 of them. It happened in Babs Mill Lake in Solihull.
Which is apparently a beautiful place.
3 boys. They're aged 11, 10 and 8 years old.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Anyway, I mean, there's sadly, there's not much more that can be said about the story other than, obviously slightly more details are coming out about that. But that's just, I noticed, we'll talk about Dr. Alex George in a minute. I noticed he posted on his Instagram about just be careful around ice and ponds and lakes and
no matter
even
how
icy
deep
sea.
you think that ice is, it could be as deep, but it could still crack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nadia, you sent this post by Dr. Alex George. Who is Dr. Alex George?
Dr. Alex George, lots of people will know him from Love Island, but then also he's done amazing work for mental health. He did a fantastic documentary that I think we reviewed last year, didn't we, about the mental health crisis for young people.
Oh, was that about the death of his brother? Did he have a brother?
He had a brother who committed suicide.
That's
He had a
right.
brother who committed suicide, and then so tragic, just so awful. Every time he speaks, you can feel the pain is as new today as it was on that day.
Yeah.
And he speaks so eloquently and with such empathy and such understanding. And he's a really gentle soul. And he started the campaign of Take Your Pill, where people would photograph themselves taking their pill, their mental health pill.
I remember that, yeah.
And then that sort of took off on Instagram. Then fairly recently, just before me, I think, he was diagnosed with ADHD, and he found that really, really difficult. It was funny because at the time when he was talking about that, I thought, I wonder why he's finding it so difficult. And then, of course,
I think it was around the same time I got diagnosed.
yeah, it's the same time as you. And then, of course, when I got diagnosed, I was so shocked at how much it had taken me by surprise.
Was that the
upset.
moment? Was that when he was in the press and it made him quite angry? Was that right?
He was really angry about having ADHD.
Yeah.
He's really been through it.
Yeah.
He's really been through it. Then, of course, actually through the pandemic, he was working on in A&E, and he posted a lot of that, gave us a lot of information at the time. I think he is a very, very sweet person.
Yeah.
And I think when I say, sometimes he comes across to me like I just want to look after him. He seems a lot of the time very vulnerable. His feelings are very close to his skin, sort of thing. Anyway, it caught my eye today, this post of his on Instagram, because the first line was, "I have made the decision to go sober." And he talks about how, people always think if somebody decides to go sober, they've got a huge problem with alcohol. And not that people may have looked into it and gone, actually, I might not be an alcoholic, but how much am I actually getting out of this? And he talks about how nearly every bad decision he's made and arguments he's had have been around alcohol. He said ADHD and alcohol are a terrible mix, because losing your keys, doing all of that anyway with ADHD, but add alcohol to it and it's a mess. And so he was talking about being sober curious is quite a big movement now, isn't it? We were talking about that off license the other day. So a lot of people, and Mark was just talking yesterday about 16 to 25-year-olds, I think you said. There's a lot.
Gen Z.
So that we've got to start thinking differently about people that are giving up alcohol, because they're not all alcoholics. They're people saying, well, it is a poison. And actually, what does it do for me? And actually, am I sometimes drinking, even if I am only drinking 1 or 2 glasses of wine a night, or 3 large gin and tonics, so I'm not an alcoholic, but am I using it to deal with all the things in my life that I find difficult? And is that actually healthy? So I think, again, he's such a great guy, because he does everything without ego. He does it very humbly. You never feel like he's doing it for attention. You feel like he's doing it to help get attention to the cause. And I think that's another one of these.
Absolutely, and as MeTube says, it's not our job to sustain an alcohol industry or drinks industry. I mean, he does liken it to the whole tobacco industry, where they're a codependent. Isn't it funny how addiction? I've often said I worry that economically and socially we are addicted to alcohol. And isn't it weird that in America they had that prohibition moment where there was a sense that it was corroding and destroying the fabric of society? And I think we live alongside alcohol much as an alcoholic does. I think socially we are addicted to alcohol, and we are addicted to compulsive overeating and food issues because of the commercial aspect of it. And the commercial aspect around drinking isn't just about drinks firms suggesting we should drink. The commercial aspect around drinking is also people feeling undervalued, overlooked, economically marginalized, will turn to anything that can numb their economic. So, the financial aspect, the money aspect around drink comes from both ends of the equation. And I think, the vast majority, I would say a huge number of people are collateral damage in this industry, and it's just tolerated. And it's kind of unrelated but related, because there's another story I pulled today about how they're using ketamine to help alcoholics. Now, I think there's a whole fucking problem just waiting in that. But there was an interesting statistic which feeds into Dr. Alex's thing, which is the estimate of the cost to the NHS of alcohol-related harm. So this is the cost of alcohol damage directly to people, their bodies, not others, but to their bodies, is $3.5 billion a year.
Wow.
The cost to the wider community, which is something I've always talked about, which is violence, ambulances, police, security, management, clean-up operations, and all that happen because of alcohol but don't necessarily result in acute A&E situations. The cost to the wider UK society is $40 billion a year.
There you go. That's how you could give the nurses their raise.
But that's the whole deficit.
That's the whole deficit.
That's almost the whole deficit.
Wow.
Coming out of an industry. And so, my thing about alcohol, when people say, am I an alcoholic? What is an alcoholic? How do you know you're an alcoholic? And he mentions this, the cost. It's when the cost... Dr. Alex does it. It's when the cost of having a drink is much more than simply the price, i.e., there's a cost to your health, there's a cost to your money, there's a cost to your relationships, there's a cost to your mental health. As soon as those costs... And often you're the least appropriate person to make that assessment, because you're in the throes of it and you're enthralled to alcohol.
You just got to get completely away from the idea that an alcoholic is somebody that's drinking every day or drinking all day or is on a park bench.
Yeah.
If I think I've had for sure, I've had whole alcoholic periods of my life where I was drinking excessively to numb my feelings. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to manage myself, actually. So I would just drink. I realised now I had so much more anxiety than I ever recognised it.
Yeah.
I didn't have the words. So I would drink to quell this anxiety. Since taking my ADHD medication, I realised that I've always been anxious. I just didn't have the word for it because my anxiety has dropped so much.
I think some major studies need to be done into ADHD.
If you're waking up in the morning and you're just feeling a bit under the weather from the alcohol you had the night before, then that is a problem with alcohol. If alcohol is putting a problem, giving you a problem that you didn't have, I think even if it's waking up and feeling shit, not a cracking alcoholic hangover, but you're just like jaded.
Yeah, but
for the first few hours, I hate it when I feel like that. And I look at myself and I go, why did I have that drink last night? Why? I can talk to anyone. I don't need it to talk to anyone. I don't need it to laugh. I don't need it to jump on a table. I don't need to have it to swing from a chandelier. Why do I drink? It's because it's just so expected.
But one of the other aspects of drinking that's really odd is the way we normalise and make light of the negative consequences. So, for example, there's lots of jocular comments and joviality about, hangovers. How bad's your hangover? I have a creepy... look...
But that's your body poisoned.
Yeah, no. I'm not talking about
That's
the
the weird
hangover. I'm
thing.
talking about the way we socially we fold into the fabric of acceptability.
No, but that's what I'm talking
How
about.
we,
No, but
hang
I'm
on,
agreeing.
how we deal with hangovers,
Yeah.
how we chat about hangovers, so that actually, yes, of course, people can just have normal hangovers, and yes, it can be funny. And I'm not suggesting that. I lived my life thinking it was all funny. But what happens within that is we normalise behaviour for some of those people who are having a real problem, who are having hangovers every single day.
When I say it's because it's poisonous, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. We've made it so that it's a really funny thing. If somebody is crawling across the floor, throwing up, that is... Imagine any other way that somebody was poisoned. Right? Say he came and said, oh God, it's not going to kill me, but I accidentally sprinkled some rat poison on my egg and toast this morning. I'm feeling really sick, got a terrible hangover. I can't get to work. I'm not going to make the date. I'm not going to go to my kids' panto. I'm not going to do, because I've poisoned myself. You'd be going, what? And the thing is, it's become totally acceptable that we poison ourselves. It's ethanol. You can't even open a pot of ethanol without dying. If you opened a pure pot of ethanol, I remember watching this program about drink, you'd die. But anyway, this isn't in any way a lecture. We're just Well, this is a conversation that we were having this morning that we've carried on.
But
with
also,
you.
I really don't want to give the impression that for anyone who's new, I mean, I don't mind. I love the fact that people can enjoy drinking. I wish I could enjoy drinking. That's fine. And you know, being around people who drink is fine. I don't like being around. I don't think anyone likes being around people who are annihilated, drunk, and falling all over the place and vomiting.
Or repeating
it's
themselves.
not fun. Also, the one thing I would say to anyone who's wondering about their drinking, I mean, I'm a big believer, and it's what I say to the girls. I'm a big believer in trying to have, in inverted commas, as healthy a relationship with drinking as possible. Mindful drinking. If you haven't become an alcoholic yet, if you're not an alcoholic yet, if it's not costing you more than the cost of a drink, but every now and then you drink too much and you don't like it, just have a bit of consciousness about when you're drinking, why you're drinking, and how you're drinking. But one of the things I notice happens an awful lot is people often who have a problem or have an inclination towards a problem with alcohol will befriend or know someone, and tell me if this is true for you, in their group who drinks more than them. And they use them as an example of how they're not as bad as that. I used to do it all the time. There'd be someone in my group who drank more than me, or I'd try and find. Actually, there wasn't. I'd try and find someone who drank more than me. I was often other people. I was often other people's person. Of God, bloody hell, Mark can't off cane it, and they'd all trot off home a little earlier in the evening, and I'd just keep going. And for them, I know that some of them also had drink problems, but they could use me as an example of it being much worse, so that they weren't.
See what Faith Goodman says, there's social pressure. I don't drink just because I don't really like it, and there's pressure to have a glass of wine, so I always drive as an excuse. You have to give an excuse not to drink. And somebody just said there, was it Anne? Intoxicated has toxic in it. I'd never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
Christos read an article yesterday that talking about how it damages every single organ in the body, alcohol. You know, so I think we need to just not immediately assume that somebody that's said, "Oh, I'm not going to drink anymore," is an alcoholic who's been at their lowest point. I think more and more people are just going, what am I doing actually?
Yeah, Zoe, you just have to learn to say no and not feel you have to keep up with everyone else if you don't want to. And here's the other thing, like Zoe, you like a glass of wine. Nadia likes a glass. This is not about.
I love a glass.
Yeah, this is not about not drinking.
Sometimes.
I actually like being around people who are at that fizzy point of having had a few drinks. Their inhibitions are down. The conversation is looser. There's lubrication literally in the social situation. That's nice. Where I get real social anxiety is when I know that most people are going to start talking absolute shit after 10 drinks, which is fine for other people who've drunk 10 drinks, because you're all talking shit, not listening to each other, you're not going to remember a fucking thing. But for the person who's trying to stay sober or not drinking as much or whatever, it's pretty turgid. It gets a bit boring. It's just boring.
Natasha says that her dad does this, pressuring people to have a drink, even if he knows they're driving. So it's not like it's just awful, isn't it?
It's interesting.
I've said this before. In France, if you do this over your glass, and if your host will not offer you another glass of wine, that it's just like it's just out of respect. But here, the Brits, I've done it all my life.
What?
Not since finding out about alcoholism with you, but don't be silly.
I used to do
I'm
it.
going to buy you one. Yeah. I'm going to get you a double. Shut up. Oh my God, I can cringe when I think about what that's so embarrassing.
An editor of mine who was a good friend, I didn't understand for about a year and a half in Bristol. He'd be like, "No, I don't want to drink. No, I don't want to drink." And I'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Come on.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Terrible line." And then, of course, it was only many years later when I got sober and he said, "Now do you understand?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry."
Oh my God.
So sorry.
Never ever if somebody says no, just say, "Oh, can I get you a soda?" Don't say, "You sure? Because that person might be just on the edge of saying yes and they've been sober or whatever.
Anyway, just very quickly, and then we'll move on to FATPHOBIA. Ketamine for alcoholics. Quick story. There's a research therapy program at University of Exeter trial where they're using ketamine as a way to get people, alcoholics, to stay sober. An early study found participants who had ketamine combined with therapy stayed completely sober, representing 86% abstinence in their 6-month follow-up. Now, it's a bit like magic mushrooms with depression.
Don't go out and take ketamine or take magic mushrooms.
Okay.
This has to be clinical amounts.
Clinical experiments like this and therapeutic things like this are well and good. But let's just look at the situation with cannabis, medical cannabis and cannabis. Most of the conversations I hear with youngsters, young adults and people about cannabis is the extension that because cannabis, what's it called, CBD or whatever, because certain
THC is
Yeah, because there are certain medical grade cannabis products that genuinely help with certain conditions. There's a huge slate of hand use by people who want to sanction and justify their recreational cannabis use, which is always lying back. It's good for you. It helps you. It's good for you. It kind of helps you. My problem and worry with this, a little bit like magic mushrooms, is I felt it in myself. When I heard that magic mushrooms, microdotting, can help, that's not to say it can't. But you can't kid an addict. You can't make an addict stop thinking on some level, what does this mean? They might have 86% abstinence on this project, but go back into the real world. If you know ketamine is helping you,
you end up buying it.
You could end up buying it street.
Do you know how this is used a lot with young people? You want me to get it? Young people use it recreationally, and it is so devastating because it affects the bladder. Obviously not in this medical way. This is people taking it recreationally, and they have to have their bladder removed. And it's just... What's wrong? Oh, and it's just fucking heartbreaking. And we often talk to groups of young people about things like this, and it is frightening how many people at university use ketamine, and they fall into this K-hole thing where they're just like totally out of it. And we were saying the other day, they need to put posters up. The only way to get this story through to teenagers is a poster of a teenager who's had to have their bladder removed and have a bad ketamine.
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad for you. So
does anyone else think
I
that?
see what you mean, though, because, like, yeah, you even might say, you even thought of it, didn't you, with the mushrooms? Well, should we just get some mushrooms?
Well,
should we go picking for some mushrooms?
Obviously not.
Obviously we didn't, but
I
there is that moment, isn't there? We think, especially when you're suffering with depression and you think, God, could there be a way out of this?
Yeah. Just the mind of an addict is always looking for a way round. They're always looking for ways round. Anyway, FATPHOBIA. FATPHOBIA. Anyone heard about a film that's coming out called The Whale, starring Brendan Fraser? Kathy, sorry, going back to that. Kathy Brady Leon. Hi, guys. 6 months sober, thank God. Wondering, when are you doing another talk on depression and alcohol? Love you both. 3 years of sub. Absolutely, we'll do another one. Absolutely. We'll do another one, especially over the Christmas period. We were talking about potentially doing a How to Stay Married about it.
And Dina's new friend, who follows us on here, I won't say your name, who Dina has shared with us that you have been sober now, I think, is it for 6 months, 3 months?
Yeah.
Just want to say, bloody well done, you. One day at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quiet sub.
The Whale. The Whale is a new film by a director called Darren Aronofsky. It's about an obese gay father who's had a child I think he's had the child with another gay partner. They've split up. He's gay. He's on his own. He has an estranged relationship with his daughter. And the character is played by Brendan Fraser, who you might know from George of the Jungle, The Mummy, who has himself publicly struggled with weight issues, and obviously the press like to always show the photo of him before and the photo of him after and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he plays I think you use the phrase, I never like it, a morbidly obese character. And he himself obviously is more overweight than he used to be. But they used a fat suit and prosthetics and makeup to fully bulk him out. And this reminds me a little bit of the Renée Zellweger story several months ago, where I can't remember the character she played in the series, but she too had to wear a fat suit, or wore a fat suit to play this character. There was a huge backlash. And I just wanted to know what you thought, guys. Is it right or is it wrong that an actor like Brendan Fraser is cast to do this in this role, when a lot of people are criticising it, saying, why didn't they cast a gay, obese actor to play the part? Discuss.
Well, I hate this distraction from what is really fat phobia. I think this is a distraction of the argument, because I think...
Well, they're saying the film is fat phobic.
Well, I haven't seen the film yet, so I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of people haven't seen it.
But if we're just talking about the fact that an actor who isn't obese is playing somebody obese, I think that distracts from the fat phobia discussion, because I think it is a huge problem. I see it all the time, especially in my business. People literally judge for being overweight, fat, obese, whatever. Right. Terribly judged. Right. And it really upsets me. And I think that you cannot I hate this idea that actors can only play the characters that have gone through what they. I mean, how would you have anybody play a psychopath? How would you have anybody play an abuser? You can't expect that every actor has to have lived that life experience. An actor of his caliber, you said he struggled with his weight. They would research this. They would really talk to people. They would have to open themselves up to the pain of suffering. You could have somebody that's got to act that they have cancer, that they've got stage 4 cancer. Would you only want them to have stage 4 cancer? I think it's a ludicrous argument, but I think there is always a discussion to be had about fat phobia. Because I think it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two aspects to this. There's the fat phobia that people experience in the world and certainly in the industry, where you don't readily see many people presenting shows or actors that are themselves overweight or, I hate the word, fat, obese, whatever you want to call it. I can think of some actors, and if you think of, do you remember John Candy, the actor, years ago? And I feel for an actor like Jonah Hill. I think there's this sense that people who have been overweight are often cast or characterized as the goofy character, the funny character, going right back to people like John Belushi. They might not be attractive or good looking, though.
Well, look at Rebel Wilson. Rebel Wilson said, I have to lose weight for people to take me seriously.
But isn't it interesting that most people, and what's the name of the other woman who was in Bridesmaids? There's a slow need to kind of conform to some kind of look or common. Anyway. But then this idea that, as you say, that he shouldn't have played this part. I would go so far as to say the other way, that perhaps people who aren't immersed in something or a state of being or what have you might be able to bring some new perspective to playing a part. Do you know what I mean? They might bring something from the outside. They might have had their own prejudice. Say Brendan Fraser had his own prejudices against, someone who was morbidly obese. He struggled with his own weight. He has his own experience. Everyone has body weight issues. Everyone.
But
he might bring that to his performance in a different way.
It's a real lack of understanding of how an actor works.
Melissa McCarthy. Thank you.
It's a real lack of understanding. You pull on. He's going to pull on pain. He's going to pull on experiences. It's not. You don't have to have like for like. There would be no acting.
Yeah, exactly.
There literally would be none. If we only you can only line up and try for this part as long as you've exactly experienced this. It's just an absolute nonsense. But let's all have a discussion about fat phobia. That's something different.
Okay.
I don't think this is fat phobia.
No, we're going to go on to Pantos just quickly.
No, I'll tell you what. Why don't we leave it to tomorrow after I've been to the Panto and then I can tell you about it.
Mandy Nanny, Marks, how is your short film doing? We find out in 9 days if it's shortlisted for the Oscar. It's currently in there.
It's in the 100 from thousands.
Final 100 from about 6,000 to 7,000 films.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's weird because all of the headlines at the moment, like Brendan Fraser is in amongst, I think, 82 actors. The Academy members are voting now, so it's kind of nerve-wracking because what date are we now? I think all final votes come in and
we're both in that
we'll be
place.
Notified on the 21st.
I'm a great believer in believing in things and putting things out there. I did that to get my part in the EastEnders. But I'm kind of fearful of doing this with this, which is so silly. But I do want to keep getting into the minds of people that are watching it and just like
it is.
And just I don't know.
It's a curiosity.
Yeah.
And little Oscar in there is.
Whose birthday is it then? Marie Swift. Let's sing Happy Birthday to Marie. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Marie Swift. Happy birthday to you.
Kerry Gracie, thank you. How fantastic to get this far. Exactly.
Exactly. This is what we keep saying.
It's as rare as hen's teeth to get to this stage, which is why we are just chuffed.
We already have the laurels. We have the proof. We've done it. And he's done it.
Yeah.
But listen, guys, we're going to have to go now. But if you are new to here, please have a look around the channel. We've got so much going on here. We do movie and trailer reviews and reactions. We do
marriage podcasts.
We do food. And at the moment, we have our family reality show, Vlogmas, going out every single day. So we put a lot into it. So we love to see that people are watching it. And we love to read the comments. And you basically give our own Christmas a turbocharge. So it's a two-way street. We love doing it for you guys.
Yeah, we really do.
So
Welcome,
hit the
Jemmy
subscribe
Jack.
button and the notification bell and tell all your friends about this wonderful channel.
Welcome, Jemmy Jack. And don't forget, it will be the last Sunday show this Sunday before Christmas. Because, of course, does Christmas fall on a Sunday? I think it does.